Aloha crafters, it's Mona with another DIY. I bought this wooden nutcracker at Hobby Lobby. I've not seen any videos on this yet, so I thought maybe I can create something different for someone who just loves fabric. I wanted to make this three-dimensional, so off to my fabric bins I go. The most time-consuming part of this project is just preparing what you need. This is a 4-foot tall nutcracker. You will be using some pool noodles that you'll be cutting them in half for both the legs and the arms. Take some masking tape or blue tape, whatever you have, and make sure that you squeeze the pool noodle to fit the width of the legs and the arms. I cut out the face with cardboard and also with the filler that I had. Here I am, I put masking tape against the cardboard to make it stick. And then what I did is I have a stretch woven sheeting that I used to cover up the face. It's always best to use something that has some stretchability, especially when you have to go around curves. It makes it much easier. Taking your hot glue, pulling it tight to make sure the front will stay smooth and flat. You're going to pull it, hot glue it, push it down really tight, make sure the glue is sticking, and then just keep going around like you see in the video. You're going to clip some of the pieces off when it gets too much fabric, and that's what you're going to do throughout the whole video, is you're going to just check to make sure things are done really tight. Now the stretch sheeting that we covered the face with is just the base cloth. Now what I did is I used some very soft knitted fake suede in this ivory color, which is for the face. And here I am, like I told you, that you're going to have to clip when there's curves, so then when you turn the fabric over to glue it, it goes smoothly. So you have to take your time doing this. You're going to try to hold with your thumb the fabric from the face, and you're going to go ahead and push with your fingers with the glue to make sure it sticks, and you're just going to go around the whole entire face and keep doing this. And that's basically the same thing that you just did for the base cloth of the face. It's the same thing when you're working with the real fabric that you're actually going to see. Since this is just repetitive as far as what you're doing, I ended up speeding the video so you don't get bored. I want you to stay with me. Get some tracing paper or tissue paper and go ahead and make markings for all the designs. And once you do that, you're going to take it off. You're going to lay it on the table and join the lines together. And that's what you see here. You only need to trace really one side of the patterns because you're just going to fold it in half in the middle and you're going to just cut your pattern. And it makes it much easier. Then you lay it back just to check it on the nutcracker, and I just marked the buttons. You're going to trace the hat, you're going to trace the mitten area, you're going to trace the hairline. All that you can do with tissue paper because you're going to need that later on. Next, I'm working on the legs. Again, I'm using my stretch woven sheeting, and I'm just going to wrap it around the legs. You're going to turn it around, and you're going to put actually the real fabric on the legs, or I should say the boot. And here I am cutting it, measuring it. This is a knitted fabric that's shiny. It has like a pinstripe on it, but it's very nice, and it comes like in a rose gold type of a color. And the second fabric here you'll see is a white velvet with some sparkles in it. And here is a gnome stocking that I use, that I needed to use that fur for the boot. When cutting the fur, you have to always make sure that you brush it up so you do not cut the fur, because you want it straggly when it goes on the boot. Next, we'll be working with the arms, or shall I say the mittens. And what I did is I folded up this flat padding that I had. I already cut the cardboard and stuff for the mittens. And you'll see that I'm going to attach it over to the arm. And I'm actually just going to put some blue tape to hold it down a little bit. You see me putting in that flat filler, but I ended up taking it out because I ended up using more of a polyester filler that you can just clump in there, so it makes more of a rounded mitten. And I I'm doing the other side, doing the same thing. There are 2 cardboard mittens for one arm. There's a top piece of the mitten and there's a bottom piece of the mitten. And so you're going to do the same thing. You're going to put the blue tape, you're going to put it around the other cardboard mitten just to hold it. Because what you're going to do is you're going to stuff it like I'm doing right now. You're going to stuff the cavity and you're going to put the blue tape around it to hold it in there. And then after that, you are going to get the stretch woven sheeting again. But first, I'm gluing down that extended piece from the arm to the mitten. And right there you'll see that there is the piece that I'm attaching over to cover up the blue tape. Make sure that you clip into the seams because that is a curved piece, and then glue it down. And after that, that part's done. And again, I took a gnome stocking and I used that for my mittens. I like to stop and take a look as far as how it actually comes together with the fabric, and I do end up changing that arm fabrication, which is this piece right here. This one is actually a rose gold type of color, and it is a pleated fabric. This is the crown that I don't have too much video on, but it's the same theory. You're going to put the cotton sheeting on it, stuff it, and then you're going to work with the real fabric, which is again the pleated fabric, and you're just going to wrap it around. And now you're working on the rim of the hat. Same thing, you're stuffing it, gluing it, turning it over, and then you're going to clip it at the edges. Here is the body part of the pattern that I made. This part's going to be cut up in 3 different sections: the top, the bottom, and the belt buckle. We're working on the bottom. What I did is I put together 3 plies of some filler. I top stitch where the trimming is going to go. You need to go ahead and cut the excess filler off, as you see that I'm doing over here. You're going to cut all sides to make sure that the filler does not extend the cardboard piece that you made as a guide. I used that corduroy type of fabric. It's also a knit, but the one thing next time when I do pick it out, sometimes when you use something that has a stripe on it, you have to really make sure that you actually cut it and sew it so then it's straight, because if you don't, then it'll just look crooked. So when you're pulling this very tightly, you got to make sure that the corduroy stripes look like they're even, because if you don't, it just looks kind of sloppy. So that was something that you have to take your time on if you happen to use something like this. But if it's just a solid piece of fabric with no striping or no pattern in it, where you have to make it really straight, then you won't have a problem with it. I'm showing you the arm. I'm tucking in the stretch woven sheeting into the pool noodle, and I'm just gluing down the real fabric. And this is the arm. Okay, back to the body. This is probably the most difficult part. I could have just used the pattern and make out the pattern for this trimming, but I didn't do that. So I just took the fabric, I laid it down, I turned over a 1/4 inch, pushed it down, but I did cut this kind of like on a bias, so to make it easier to go around the curve. So what I did is I, again, had to clip the edges, and I turned over 1/4 inch. I followed the guide that I stitched from my machine. You're going to use the same method for all the trimmings. And then I'm going to be working on the top. I did not use the machine to stitch this. I actually just hand basted it. I think it was much easier for me to do that. So you'll see that I'm going to stitch it back and forth, and I'm using the pattern, and you just stitch right on top of the pattern because it's a tissue paper. And after you're done stitching all of this together, you'll see how to pull it off, and the paper remains the same. Pull off the tissue paper very carefully. You can use that pattern piece for your next project for another nutcracker. I'm trying to make this video as short as possible because I don't like long videos myself, so I sped it up. There's some things maybe I didn't take close-ups on, and I'm sorry. My next videos will be better, but this was a long project that I had to do. Cut off the excess filler. Make sure that it's even with the cardboard that you made the pattern for. Makes it much easier to turn the fabric over and to work with that. Here I am making sure I know where the middle is of the bottom, the top piece of that nutcracker's body. Because like I said, you got to make sure that this is straight or it'll look pretty crooked. And it has to be straight anyway, because not only because it's just a corduroy, it's because you have those two trimmings that are in the center and you want to make sure that they're equally apart, and then it looks really nice. So that's why I marked it. So when I put the hot glue there, I only put it in the center from the top and the bottom, and then I push down the rest to fold it over. So now you're ready to put the trim piece on the jacket part, and you're going to do the same thing. You're just going to turn it over 1/4 inch. You have to make sure that you clip edges or it's just not going to turn around and it's not going to go smoothly. So there's a lot of clipping involved over here because this particular pattern piece was more of a curve. The next time when I make this particular pattern in a different color, I'm going to just go ahead and make a pattern piece for this so it's easier and faster for me to work with next time. If you are just a beginning sewer, I would suggest, if you don't want to really work with this fabric piece for this, you may want to just get maybe a 1-inch trim, but make sure that 1-inch trim is easy enough to make the curves. So then it's easier for you just to apply the glue in it and just stitch it on. That would be probably the easiest way to do it. But this is my first time making this and I was really excited. I just didn't realize how much work this involved and the thinking involved and everything else that had to do with this project. Overall, I think this was a learning experience for me, but I ended up liking this nutcracker that I made. It was a matter of coordinating all the color fabrics that I had and making sure what works together. See how nice that laid down after all that work? Now we're going to be working with the belt. So the cardboard piece will be cut to the size that it needs to be. I'm going to put 3 plies of the filler for the belt. So I'm just going to be folding it back and forth, and I'm just going to cut all the layers all at once. And then I'm going to use my chalk to mark it, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut it out. Same process, you're just going to get the fabric and you're going to glue the edges. You're going to fold it, press it. Checking how everything looked together. I painted this belt buckle a bronzy color, and then I just didn't like how it looked. So I got this sequined fabric and I cut it in pieces and I just glued it on. I folded it so the edges would have the sequins on it as well, and that's all I did. And now you'll see that I have a metallic fabric that I'm going to use as binding around that trim that's in the front of the jacket. So I sewed it up on the bias and I used my spaghetti turner. I don't even know if that's the correct term, spaghetti turner. Anyway, you'll see that there'll be some bias, and all I'm doing is going to twist it, and I am going to, and the reason why I'm twisting it is because to even make it even thinner, and then I'm going to glue it on in sections, and then I'm going to go around the curves of the trim of the jacket. I think it just needed something else because it just was too plain. The corduroy and the fake suede, it didn't have enough pizzazz. And so what I did is I had to think of what else can I put on there. And I didn't really have any trim and I didn't want to go buy it. So I had some fabric that I had to work with that was going to be in the same color scheme that I wanted it to be in. Now I'm working on the epaulets of the jacket. I think that's how to pronounce it. And I'm just going to go ahead and glue on the corduroy fabric to it, making sure that it's straight. And then I'm going to go ahead and add the bias trimming on there to match what I just did for the jacket. Again, trimming the edges so then it turns smoothly over. I don't have any video regarding when I did the bias. I looked through all my videos and I didn't have it, so you're just going to see the finished results, how it looked. This is the bottom section of the crown. I sewed it, I turned it over, I pressed it, and you'll see later on how it looks together with the top portion of the crown and how everything came together. And now I'll be working on some buttons. I had painted the buttons, but I didn't like how it looked, and so I still took that same sequence that was on the buckle, and I glued it on and cut the edges and turned it over, and I actually think it looks really good. This was just very tedious work, but it went by fast. It was just monotonous. Same thing for the same buttons that I had. The buttons that are on the crown are going to be a different color. These are the same fabric that I used actually on the bias. So actually everything coordinates with each other. It's the same color that I'm using for the boot. And you're going to see sections of where I actually am cutting out some felt and I'm putting a backing on all the items that I made. The following video is demonstration of how I applied the Velcro onto the wood nutcracker. So then you can go ahead and take these pieces off. So you're going to make sure that if you're going to apply this on, to make sure that you do it consistently. I did it with the fuzzy side of the two-part Velcro facing down. As you see that I'm starting with the legs and I will go up. Before gluing the two legs down onto the Velcro, what I did is I laid out the jacket part to make sure where it lied, so that I know that I'm placing it in the right spot. You're going to do the same with the other side of the leg, and position it and hold it down. I'll be working on the arms next. So what I did is I laid out the jacket part, the top, the bottom, and also the buckle to make sure how wide it was, because some of it went over the arm. And so I'm only going to go ahead and attach the arms only from the top shoulder. That's it. I'm not adding any Velcro to the bottom where the mittens are. Next, you'll be working on the bottom of the jacket, and I'm only going to be applying the Velcro near the bottom of that buckle. That's it, because that's the only part that will be flat. Because what happens is that I lifted that bottom of that jacket up where the legs are, so it wouldn't lie flat over to the wood frame. Now put on the belt part of the jacket, glue it down, and now you're working on the top of the jacket. I'm only putting the Velcro on the top where the end of the face is, and I'm just adjusting it and then pushing it down. The face, you're going to be doing the same thing. You're just applying the Velcro only on the top, and then you're just pushing the face down. Here I'm working on the rim of the crown. But first what I do is I put the fur hair, I lay it down first just to see what the position is, and then I apply the Velcro. I glue it on over to the wood frame, and then I hot glue the rim on and hold it. And then now I'm working on the crown. As you see, I'm putting some Velcro at the bottom and near the top, and I'm applying that on, pressing it down, and you're basically finished with all the Velcro. Here's the nutcracker with all the Velcros attached over to the wood frame. I'm giving you a demonstration of how the Velcro pieces can be taken off. So when you're doing another Nutcracker, and let's say that these colors don't work, you can also make another color scheme. You can make one in the green and the red. You can make one in the silver. Here's the metallic paint that I use for the face that you see in the video right there. Close-up of the sequin fabrics I used. And the other metallic fabric that I used for the boot and the crown. And a close-up side view of how it looked 3D. Here is the finished product going from top to bottom so you can see how it all looks. Let me know how your project turns out when you use fabric and send me an email of the picture. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I enjoyed making it. It was time consuming, but it was a lot of fun. As always, thanks for watching my video. Please subscribe and like it, and please stay tuned for some more DIY for Christmas. Thank you. Aloha.